What's going on, New York Giant fans? Welcome back to another video. If you guys haven't already, hit that like button, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications so you know when live stream pops or drops. Appreciate you all coming back. We're doing the Giants game against the Bucks on Monday. I'll be reacting. Sean will be laughing with me or at me. And then Luke will be doing the play-by-play. Boys in Big Apple podcast is going to be on Wednesday. And then that will be the final shakeup of that schedule until January, most likely. So for the rest of the year, you'll get us on Mondays, Boys in Big Apple. And then Big Blue in the Bronx podcast should be on Wednesday this week. Then we'll move back to the normal schedule since we don't have any more Monday night games. So I want to talk about a topic in specific, Dave Gettleman, Joe Judge, all that stuff, because it's been a big thing in Giants Spaces, Giants Instagram, Giants Twitter, Giants YouTube. It's been a big topic to discuss. And I feel, in my opinion, that a lot of people are having unequal arguments and not thinking about certain situations and just saying it because, well, it's popular, or saying it because that's the way they feel, but they haven't really checked out another side. I know it's a very raw thing to say to start out the video, but with that being said, I'll discuss more towards the end in terms of the final topic, my final thoughts, but I want to go and break down the last 2 years of Giants football, or I should say the last 1.5 years of Giants football in 2020, 2021. And obviously this is going out before the Monday Night Football game, so we're still on the bye week, even though it's not the bye week anymore. So let's start with 2020. Giants hired Joe Judge and all these other coaches, new coaching staff, same general manager. A lot of people argued that, well, he should have been gone before Judge was hired and all that sort of stuff. So Giants finished 6-10. They start at 1-7, then they end off on a good note, 5-3. Let's talk about some takeaways from that season. Giants obviously started off 1-7, but they were very competitive all season for about 12 to 13 games. And it was a dramatic improvement because you saw the prior year, the Giants would be in games, but one Daniel Jones turnover or the defense giving up a big play, it would just take the game away. It would distance the margin. You look at the Patriots game, for example, the Giants were tied at one point, 14-14, then a couple of turnovers, a couple of bad defensive plays, and the final score was 35-14. The Lions game was another one where the Giants scored a bunch of red zone touchdowns to make the score look even better than the game actually was. And there's a lot of other games that you can compare and put into your point. But what I'm trying to say here is Giants, they were massively competitive compared to the season prior, in about 12 to 13 out of the 16 games. Games that weren't competitive, I don't think they were competitive in the Ravens game, the 49ers game, the Cardinals game. I feel like I'm missing one or two. You could say the Browns game as well. So just some points to go there. Defense struggles to start, but they find their way around week 6, week 7, week 8. You noticed after that week 7 loss, and we could all say, oh, Evan Ingram, if he would have caught that ball, we would have went to the playoffs and all these other things, right? Obviously, the woulda, coulda, shoulda. Patrick Graham knew that was a wrong game plan, that it was almost entirely his fault that the Giants lost that game, and in a way, he probably mentally swore that he would never do that again, or at least for that season. And it showed, because other than maybe one or two games down the stretch after the Eagle game, the defense really wasn't a problem. It was the offense, it was turnovers, it was stupid penalties. Though the stupid penalties actually are a problem this year, or were a problem this year early, but it was more like the turnovers, the lack of efficiency on offense that had the Giants defense trying to win games, which really does not work out in today's NFL, in my opinion. But Patrick Graham down the stretch did a great job with the defense, though it was a lot of soft zone. They had Isaac Yiadom as a second corner. They had a bunch of injuries at the linebacker pass rushing position. You had guys like Kyler Fackrell go on IR. You had Marcus Golden traded. there was a lot of situations that did not pan out in the Giants' favor, and they made up for it. Talk about the offense. The offensive line was in shambles. They started out with Thomas, Hernandez, Gates, Zeitler, and Cam Fleming. They later rotated Lemieux and Matt Paradin. Well, Hernandez had COVID. He started to come back from that a little bit, but the offensive line was in rotations. Obviously, the Mark Colombo incident. So it was improving in some ways down the stretch. The Giants had, I think, the 17th best running game to end the season, which was a better ranking than they had in the beginning of the season because they had 6 yards from Saquon in the first game against the Steelers and not many rushing yards against the Bears. And then it started picking up, but not in a consistent manner, where down the stretch, the Giants had 100 rushing yards per game and above that because the offensive line was run blocking well compared to the first part of the year. And you really didn't have a running back that was trying to zigzag. It was Wayne Gallman. It was Dion Lewis. It was Alfred Morris. So they're not, oh my God, we got to have a home run every time. No, it was just hit the hole and not necessarily speed running backs because if it was a speed running back, I think, they would have had half the level of speed Saquon has. Like Wayne Gallman, he can hit holes, but he really doesn't have the speed Saquon has, and you can compare those two and whatnot. But the Giants' running game got better down the stretch, but the passing game, it wasn't good. It just wasn't good. There was times where Jason Garrett was really inconsistent as an offensive coordinator like he is now. But the Eagle game, the second time around, I feel like was a good game plan. The Bucks game, though Daniel Jones threw 2 interceptions, that was a good game plan. But they were just depending on field goals a lot, and Graham Gano was a great part of the Giants' scoring overall last year, and he really saved us in a lot of situations. And they really, to this day, have not gotten to 30 points under Jason Garrett as an offensive coordinator, which is a shame. But right now we're sticking to 2020. Now, you look at Daniel Jones. He did regress, but he also improved a little bit. Not many fumbles down the stretch, not many turnovers, but 11 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. That's not really a ratio you want to have, especially in today's NFL where it's offensive heavy. And once again, that was a product really of Jason Garrett. Obviously not the right weapons. And now we could say it's also Joe Judge too, because we have figured out, or at least a lot of smart fans and fans who watch the games have figured out that, well, Joe Judge is a conservative coach. So anything else I need to cover on this point? Team is disciplined. Defense struggles to start. One more thing. Obviously, the O-line, the edge room, and the wide receiver core needed to be worked on. Optimism was there, though, because the Giants have this many draft picks. They don't have a lot of money, but obviously free agency kind of refreshed the optimism in Giants fans. So a lot of people predicted, like me, a 10-win season, though that's very unlikely, though it is still likely at this point. So, make your predictions as you will. But the Giants drafted Ojulari and Ellerson Smith, and they also drafted Kadarius Toney. They signed Kenny Golladay. They really didn't do anything on the O-line. But coming off 2020, a lot of people were optimistic and a lot of people were negative because what did we see out of Andrew Thomas? Well, we saw him play good down the stretch. Lemieux really never improved. Will Hernandez was okay. He was coming off COVID. Matt Parrott was decent enough in the snaps that he played. Nick Gates is a fighter at center. Kevin Zeitler, he got cut, but a lot of Giant fans liked him, like I did. And then Cameron Fleming was just a backup offensive tackle, and he really wasn't that good. I mean, he's not Nate Solder bad, but he just wasn't that good. So let's talk about 2021. The Giants currently sit at 3-6. The offense started somewhat strong compared to other years, but poor as of late. Week 1, I thought they moved the ball well, but the penalties, the turnovers, the bad plays, the inefficiency really screwed up what the game plan was. Obviously, Jason Garrett really wasn't fully aggressive that game, and that's somewhat understandable, somewhat not understandable, because they did at the time, I don't know if they do now, have a good defense. The Denver Broncos, Pat Surtain, Ronald Darby, Justin Simmons, Kyle Fuller. At the time, they did. I don't know what their situation is now, but you look at week 2, awesome game plan. The defense really didn't do their job, and we would have won that game if Dexter Lawrence didn't step off sides and if the defense just did their job in total, because they let Taylor Heineke get over 340 passing yards, and the defense was being beat like a drum, and James Bradbury was playing 10 to 12 yards off of his man, meaning Terry McLaurin, and a lot of other situations of what-if factors. The offense, week 3, really wasn't that good. A lot of killing penalties. The defense stuck it out well against the Falcons. Matt Ryan is really not known as a downfield quarterback these days because of his age, because of the way, in my personal opinion, that the Falcons have mistreated him in ways. But that was a game for the offense to win. They didn't win it because of the conservatism, and a lot of guys, I think, got hurt that game as well. Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton included. Then C.J. Board got some snaps, and it was a whole mess. But week 4, that was a great game plan. They got aggressive as of late. John Ross touchdown in his first catch as a New York Giant. Or I should say, that was his first catch as a New York Giant in his first game as a New York Giant. So he started out with splash. Kenny Galladay, I believe, was the leading receiver. Saquon Barkley was factored in. Kadarius Toney as well. And then week 5, week 6, not really great game plans. The team as a whole didn't do great. The offense was giving the defense short fields, which wasn't a good thing because of the turnovers, and the Rams scored easy touchdowns, and the defense was just bad. And the Cowboys game was a total blowout, 2 games in a row. Week 7, the defense did their job. The offense had a game plan where it's, we're not going to be too aggressive, but we're going to try to score the points that we can, and we'll take what the defense gives us with the rollouts and stuff like that. Week 8, the offense should have won. The defense held the Kansas City Chiefs to 20 points. The offense didn't take advantage because of the margin of error being this small. We're all blaming, Daniel Jones, he threw the interception. Now, we could have won that game if he didn't throw the interception, but there was a lot of penalties. There was a lot of mistakes left on the field. There was a lot of points left on the field as well. Some of that can be attributed to Jason Garrett. Week 9, not the greatest game plan in my opinion, but they knew how to at least get some points. Devontae Booker was a major piece on the ground, but also I believe they abandoned somewhat of the passing game once Daniel Jones fumbled. But let's talk about most of the takeaways at this point in the season. The defense adjusted midway through. In my opinion, and now I'm saying this with me being so critical on Patrick Graham to start the season, I think that's what you need in an NFL defense or a defensive coordinator to be at that. A not perfect defense, not a horrifically, historically bad defense, but a defense that's in the mid-tiers that will adjust midway through the season. And as long as your offense prioritizes scoring points, your defense will be okay, and then they'll start picking it up, and then you'll be a better team going down the stretch. You've seen teams like the Rams in certain games. The Chiefs from 2019, they adjusted on defense midway through the season. They won the Super Bowl, and a lot of other teams over the years. Lackluster investments in the offensive line edge room. Edge room, in terms of that, there's a lot of mistakes there made by Dave Gettleman. I'm not going to sit here and say it's Joe Judge or Pat Shurmur. Sure, you could say the defensive coordinators may have had an influence, same thing with head coaches, but I'm not going to sit here and say, it's, Joe Judge drafted these guys. I'm not going to say that whether it's a bad draft pick or a good draft pick. That's just plain stupid. In terms of the edge room, for a couple of years now, Dave Gettleman has drafted the same caliber guys in the later rounds. It really hasn't worked. O'Shane Ximines, Lorenzo Carter being those guys. Azeez Ojulari obviously looks like a good pick. We'll see what Ellerson Smith is, but they never really drafted first-round edge rushers or second-round edge rushers before this year, and they really never signed anyone in free agency that was going to be a big hit, major impact. And I'm not expecting the Giants to go out and sign a pass rusher every year like Matt Judon or Myles Garrett. There's not too many in this game that are like those guys, especially within traits. But the lack of investments definitely showed in weeks 1, weeks 2, weeks 3. it just wasn't there, and it showed on the field because how many times did Patrick Graham send blitzes in week 1 and Teddy Bridgewater found ways out of the pocket? Same thing week 2. Taylor Heineke seemed like he had all day in the pocket other than 1 or 2 plays. In terms of the O-line, you could definitely make a case that Dave Gettleman really has not invested in this O-line. Other than Andrew Thomas, you're banking on guys like Shane Lemieux and Matt Parrott to work out as future guys. Those are really depth guys. Those are really developmental guys that are supposed to be backups as their floor. Ceiling, maybe you'll get a guy like Trey Smith. Maybe you'll get a guy like Shaq Mason, who right now, not apparently, but is the right guard for the New England Patriots. There's a lot of other guys you could compare to, right? But you can't bank on 3rd, 4th, 5th round picks, whether it's linemen, whether it's cornerbacks, whether it's edge. You can't bank on those picks to be quality starters. You have to get starters, then you could provide the depth on the back end. And sure, he's done a nice job, sometimes in the first round, sometimes with depth pieces like Carter Coughlin, even though I thought the defense should have used him more as a rusher to begin the season before he got on IR. Cam Brown has been a nice special teams piece. There's a couple other guys that he's drafted that are nice pieces, but just the lack of investment in the edge room and the O-line room really has hurt this team, and you need a good edge room these days. This can't be the Bill Belichick days of, Stephon Gilmore and all those guys. And trust me, Stephon Gilmore obviously won Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2019 for a reason. But even Bill Belichick stepped it up in 2021 and signed Matt Judon and tried getting some edge guys. They are, I believe, 14th, 15th in sacks. So that's better than last year when they were in the low 20s. So they've adjusted, and they're a better team because of it. Same with the O-line. Obviously, they drafted Michael Onwenu and all these other guys. And one thing that the Patriots are also known for, before I go back into my other points, is that once Nate Solder left New England, they immediately drafted a left tackle in Isaiah Wynn. So they're not afraid to draft over guys. Where the Giants, you can make your comparisons. They drafted over Solder with Andrew Thomas, but also they didn't really have... I would say they really didn't draft over Zimenez and Carter until this year, where they finally somewhat recognized they needed edge help. But undisciplined in the first few games, that's definitely on Joe Judge. That's definitely on the players. And not all of the Giants' problems this year to this point has been on talent. The O-line, you can say that. The edge room, you can say that. But James Bradbury struggling within the first few weeks. You could blame that on Bradbury. You could blame that on Patrick Graham for playing him off ball for the first couple of games and allowing, a lot of chunk plays to guys like Terry McLaurin, all these other guys. The undisciplinedness, the stupid penalty, with Elijah Penny. That you could definitely blame on discipline, but also blame it on the players. And I just, in ways, don't know how you could blame that on Dave Gettleman. I don't think you can blame, Elijah Penny making a stupid decision that loses you a game almost, in ways. I don't know that you can blame that on Dave Gettleman, because it's not like Elijah Penny in the past had a history of penalties with the Arizona Cardinals. You really can't predict that. It's a stupid decision by the player himself, and it's also something the coaches need to touch on, but mostly on the player. So, undisciplinedness, Nate Solder, also, why is he starting at right tackle? That's also Dave Gettleman and the coaching staff as well, because how is Matt Parrott not ready to this point? I don't know. So that's what I'm talking about with undisciplined, also killing drives. The offense has killed more drives for themselves than the defense has killed drives for themselves, which has allowed scores. Obviously, in the first half, you could debate. I don't think the penalties were really the issue on the defensive side of the ball, but the offensive inefficiencies are due to penalties, in one side of the point. Kyle Rudolph, this penalty, even though I don't think he's even had a penalty, maybe it's a false start. Nate Solder holding. Nate Solder, illegal man downfield. False start, Will Hernandez. Illegal man downfield, Matt Parrott. Those penalties lead to dead drives, which you could have gotten points on. And once again, that's on the player. That's also on the coaches as well. And the offensive coordinators, Jason Garrett, but the head coaches, Joe Judge. Lack of investments, defense. Talent and coaching, I already said they're split issues. And let's talk about Joe Judge for 20 seconds before we get to the outlook, and I let you guys go on the rest of your day. Joe Judge's coaching. I feel like a lot of people as of late, because the Giants have had some progress overall, have not talked about this. The timeout usage in the Washington game, the timeout usage in the Kansas City game. It's finally come out, oh, well, the Giants and other teams across the NFL have had headset problems. Adjust. If this isn't the first time you've had headset issues, well, either call somebody at the NFL, and we know how the NFL is. They're very self-righteous. They're very ignorant. But with that being said, find ways around it. Find ways around it. 31 other teams deal with headset issues. What makes the Giants so special? Lack of aggressiveness. The 4th and 1, 4th and 2 against the Saints, where Graham Gano misses his first field goal on the season. That shouldn't have been a missed field goal because the Giants should have went for it. There's a couple other situations where he's not aggressive. I think he said in one of his press conferences, oh, we're not going to sit here and score 7 every drive. He said something like that, which is totally backwards compared to the philosophy and the major way of success in today's NFL. Sure, you have outlier teams like the Patriots and the Steelers with over 500 records, soon to be leading their divisions, with very good defenses and offenses that are mid-tier to in the 20s. Those are outlier teams. But you look at what the Giants could be and should be in some cases. Green Bay Packers, even though they're very good on defense this year, sometimes their offense has been on and off. But you look at the Cardinals, high-powered offense. You look at the Titans, high-powered offense. The Rams, high-powered offense. If you're going to have that mindset with scoring points and not prioritizing that and telling your defense to win the game every game, it's not going to last very long. It's not going to last very long, especially in today's NFL. Basically, that's what the Giants did the entire 2016 season. And look at now. We're in this situation because they didn't rebuild and all these other situations, but 2017 was a product of overusing the defense in that standpoint, in that factor, whatever you want to say about it. So, also, another thing I keep hearing from Giants fans, and here's what I'm going to say about it. I've said it a gazillion times on Twitter, on YouTube. I'm going to state it probably for the last time, even though it probably won't be. Let's stop acting as if Jason Garrett was put in by John Mara and he's so much of an untouchable. If that's the case, ladies and gentlemen, we need to blame Joe Judge, for 2 reasons. Joe Judge is a conservative coach. We all know that. He doesn't prioritize scoring points, as I brought up about 2 minutes ago, possibly. That's number 1. Number 2, if Joe Judge is not happy with the production of this offense the past year and a half. Now, he obviously did something about Mark Colombo. He fired him, brought in his own guy. His own guy really didn't stay too long, and brought in Rob Sale, blah, 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 blah. Obviously, the rest is history. But there's obviously that situation that Giant fans like to pull out and say, well, he got rid of Mark Colombo. We have to assume that he can't get rid of Jason Garrett. Well, that's bullshit. I understand a lot of people are making the connections between John Mara and Jason Garrett because Garrett was a former New York Giants backup quarterback. But with that being said, Joe Judge has to be a man. He has to be a man of dignity. I'm pretty sure, and this is my opinion, you can share that as well. I am pretty sure that Joe Judge has a lot of leverage on his hands. Because let's paint a picture. Joe Judge, right? Let's just say he's really unhappy with this Giants offense. He goes to John Mara and says, look, I want to fire Jason Garrett. John Mara says, no way, Jose, you'll get fired if you try doing that shit. So, Joe Judge then could either attempt to fire Garrett again, stick with it, or say, fuck you, John Mara, I am leaving. If you're not going to let me have some say in the coaches that I supposedly hired, then you know what? You can kiss my ass. I'm out of here. And you know what that would set off? That would set off a chain reaction. Because you tell me how many players would play for Jason Garrett as the interim head coach. Now, there is a situation also in the air because Patrick Graham would be the head coach at that point because currently he is the assistant head coach. What makes you think that Patrick Graham may or may not go with him out the door? So that would leave you with Jason Garrett. And guess what? How many guys are playing for Jason Garrett? I honestly believe in that situation that the New York Giants players would totally give up and Jason Garrett and the Giants overall as an organization would lose the locker room. And guess what? We would be in a worse situation at that point because the players would not have anything to play for. Their motivator and Joe Judge would be gone. So you know what? Let's stop acting and hiding behind the excuse, oh, well, Jason Garrett's an untouchable. Bullshit. Because if Joe Judge was a man, he tried getting rid of him. And you know what? Joe Judge will be able to tell a success story and say, John Mara's an asshole. In about 5 years, he'll be able to say, oh, John Mara's an asshole. He didn't let me fire Jason Garrett. And look, I took the whole locker room with me. So that's my opinion on that. Now, this has been a very long video. I just checked the timestamp. Let's get to the outlook. Obviously, a lot of Giant fans want Dave Gettleman fired. Some want Dave Gettleman back. Some want everybody fired. Some want everybody to stay. The situation is really a fucking mess for the New York Giants, however you want to see it. Here's my proposition. Here's my opinion. If you guys disagree with me, if you guys agree with me, if you hate my guts for thinking this, comment and I'll reply and actually give more evidence and I'll debate you to the bitter end like I would anyone else. Status quo or let them go. What do I mean by that? The Giants at the end of the year, barring any stupid incidents, like let's just say the Giants win 2 more games and that's it, and the locker room is gone and Joe Judge doesn't have players playing for him. Barring any situation like that, the Giants, in my opinion, should keep everybody. Yes, that means they should keep Dave Gettleman. And if they don't keep Dave Gettleman, I would be on board with firing Dave Gettleman and bringing in Kevin Abrams as the interim GM. You may question me in this mentality. It's more like a forced mentality for me. Because guess what, folks? I'm going to paint a situation that I'm painting for the 100th time. Possibly the 1,000th time. Giant fans like to compare the current Giant state to a lot of the dumpster fire teams. The Jets, the Lions, the Jaguars, you can name them all. Let's talk about the Jets for a moment. Arranged marriage is something, in my opinion, that the New York Giant fans want, and it's not something they should want. Let's paint a situation. Back in 2018, meaning the Jets, they stuck with Mike Maccagnan after they fired Todd Bowles. Both were originally hired in 2015 after the firings of John Idzik and Rex Ryan. So then they were hired, and then 2018, after the season, Todd Bowles is fired, Mike Maccagnan stays. Let's go more into the story. After the draft, now Adam Gase obviously was hired by Maccagnan and the Johnson family. After the draft, after free agency, after all that hard work, as many put it, Mike Maccagnan is fired because Adam Gase did not like some of the things he did in free agency, like sign Le'Veon Bell and a couple other things as well. So Adam Gase and the Johnson family conspire to fire Mike Maccagnan. What does that do? That brings in Joe Douglas, their current general manager. An arranged marriage, in a way. Joe Douglas was a former executive for the Philadelphia Eagles, blah, 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 but both were friends, Adam Gase and Joe Douglas. So 2019, Joe Douglas really doesn't get to do a lot. The one signing he did make of the few was Ryan Khalil, who really didn't work out for the Jets. He was a center coming out of retirement, really didn't play that well. I think he actually got injured at some point during the 2019 season. The Jets did have a strong finish of 6-2. They had a record of 7-9 for the 2019 season. Now you go into 2020, there's some optimism there, and they make free agent signings together. They draft together Joe Douglas and Adam Gase. They finish the season 2-14. 16-game season still, so you got to remember that. I apologize for pinching my nose. It feels a little itchy. But 2-14 finish. Adam Gase is out the door. A lot of people are questioning, meaning Jet fans, they're questioning, why is Joe Douglas still here? Why is he still the general manager? Blah 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 rah 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 rah. They're unhappy. So what happens is Gase is fired, but Douglas stays, and he is helping the Johnson family hire Robert Saleh. And now we're at a point where the Jets are currently, what's the record? 2-6, if I'm not mistaken. 2-6, 2-7, something like that. I think they're 2-7. And a lot of people don't have trust in Robert Saleh, but a lot of people want Joe Douglas gone because of the supposed lack of talent he's put on the field. Now, I'm not a Jet fan, so I'm not going to sit here and go into the roster and all these other things like I'm a Jet fan. I'm a Giant fan. And, let's just say they do fire Joe Douglas. Robert Saleh is going to hire the next general manager. It's a circus that keeps happening. It's a three-ring circus. It's a cycle. Excuse me. I know I'm rumbling here. It's a cycle. And it's a bad cycle to be on. And guess what, folks? That cycle is going to continue if the Giants keep one guy and fire the other. Whether it's keeping Dave Gettleman or keeping Joe Judge and firing the other. I know I'm doing this motion. But it's weird to me that Giant fans want to bring an outside GM. I don't care if it's, Monty Austinfort from Tennessee or Osborne, from Baltimore, or this guy or that guy. Arranged marriages most of the time never work. Even if you want to compare it to old culture and some religions and stuff like that, whatever the hell you want to go into, it's most likely not going to work. And to not look at your crosstown rivals and see how it played out there, it's kind of ignorant, and it's kind of, in a way, you're being misinformed. I'm not sitting here and saying that Dave Gettleman should be the GM. He has no way convinced me that he is a future piece, and he has he has not convinced me that he's going to change as a general manager and adapting to the new philosophy, the new NFL. There's no way he's convincing me that he's doing that because it's just simply not true with the way he's built the secondary, all these other things. But the Giants need stability. And let's take a look at another picture. Giants bring in Osborne, all these other guys. Maybe they have Kevin Abrams as well. A lot of Giant fans are complaining about the philosophy, about the old school philosophy of the defense, winning games, the offense not prioritizing scoring points. If you think Dave Gettleman is gone and that philosophy is going to go out the door with him, I think you're sadly mistaken. Joe Judge has brought the New England culture, and a lot of people have tried to finesse that. Really hasn't worked, and he's very conservative, as we all know. He gets that from New England, because let me paint another picture. Let me give you guys another situation. When Brady went back to Gillette Stadium this year, I want to say it was about 54 seconds left in the game. It was 4th and 2 or 4th and 3, and the Patriots could have went for it and maybe gotten a first down and gotten further and further into field goal range where Nick Folk would have been comfortable with tying the game. I think it was 16-13 at that point. But instead, they kicked the field goal with Nick Folk. And Nick Folk is close to 40 years old. He's probably like 35 or something. He misses the kick. Because of the lack of aggressiveness at that point and the leaning on the kicker, they lost that game. That's what I truly believe. Maybe Bucs fans and Patriots fans can paint it another way. I don't know. I know Mac Jones did turn over the ball a couple of times in that game, but that is one of the mistakes that cost him the game. That's the same mentality Joe Judge has. I believe if it was 4th and 3, no matter who the GM is, if it's 4th and 3 on the 38-yard line, I have a feeling whether they think he's going to miss, whether they think he's going to go ahead and make the field goal, I certainly have a feeling that Joe Judge is going to be like, okay, 4th and 3, kick the field goal, and let's give him more time on the clock. That mentality, ladies and gentlemen, the mentality of lack of aggressiveness is not really portrayed as a good thing in today's NFL. This is not the 1980s anymore. And I'm just going to paint the picture of what I see is the truth. That philosophy is not going out the door. I don't know if I just spit. That philosophy is not going out the door with Dave Gettleman. It's staying with Joe Judge. So it's either status quo or they all go. That's what I think. Fire everybody. If you want to fire everybody, go ahead and fire everybody. Personally, I wouldn't have a problem with that because that just means a bigger chance of John Mara hiring somebody who has a modern philosophy and who has outside knowledge compared to someone who's on the inside and still has that old giant way football philosophy. That's my opinion. So just to end it off here, it's either Joe Judge and Gettleman stay or Joe Judge and Abrams, or it's fire everybody and completely start this shit over. I know it's a long video, but if you guys haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops video drops. Appreciate y'all coming back. I didn't expect it to be this long. I probably would have made it into a podcast episode, but it is what it is. Peace out, guys. See you later. Stay cool.